I'm going to talk about the PACQUIAO versus Thurman Jr. fight, but in a slightly different light. And before I continue, I have to add this caveat. The views in this video are strictly mine. That doesn't mean others don't share them, but I'm not holding anyone else accountable here. So no names will be mentioned, but mine as far as the opinion goes. Now, I could get in trouble for this video, but I'm just doing my job, so be it. I was going to go real hardcore with this, but somebody talked a little bit of sense into me, I guess. So I'll use words like speculation and alleged and whatever else. I was on 2 conference calls last week. I didn't get a chance to ask Keith Thurman Jr. a question as they ended the call before they got to me. On the Manny Pacquiao call, I asked Manny a question and asked Freddie Roach if he wanted to follow up and chime in also. And so I told Manny he's fought many fighters with power, and he's fought many fighters with speed. But I asked him, was Keith the first fighter he'll face who had the combination of both speed and power? And I'm not sure if he totally understood where I was going, but whatever. You can find both conference calls, the one with Manny, the one with Thurman, on the timeline below this video. So I didn't want to do it this way, but a buddy of mine told me to say this, so I'll do it. Anything I say in this video is alleged. I don't have concrete evidence other than the patterns I see. I see some patterns. So it's strictly my opinion and shouldn't be considered as fact, but just speculation. On the Keith Thurman Jr. conference call, in my opinion, he failed on his response to the VADA testing question. And I'm going to play that portion of the call in a second. Now, I know there's been speculation about Manny Pacquiao in the past, and listen, rightfully so. So when he finally fought Floyd Jr., who's supposed to be Mr. Drug Testing, if you want to believe that, Manny got tested a double-digit amount of times, okay, and random testing. So if they pop up at 2 a.m. or 4 p.m., you have to give your blood and your urine. So they hit Manny quite a bit. Now, you never heard the testing done on his opponent, though, Floyd Jr. They got Manny multiple times, whereas they caught Floyd Jr. red-handed the day before the Pacquiao fight with an IV, which is banned according to the World Anti-Doping Agency, that's WADA, guidelines. It's banned according to WADA guidelines. And what did they do? Nothing. No, hold up, my fault. They did do something. Some money was exchanged, and all of a sudden, USADA comes with its therapeutic use exemption. for Floyd Jr. The problem with that is the diabolical Bobby Bennett, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, or Nevada Athletic Commission, take your pick. The commissioner stated USADA did not have the authority to give the exemption. So, a few years later now, what was the end result? Did Floyd Jr. get suspended? No. Was he heavily fined? No. So, if it's illegal under WADA rules and illegal under the Nevada State Athletic Commission rules, what gives? I tell you, once the brown paper bags were passed around and Nevada State Athletic Commission and WADA did nothing, then there's your result. But nobody cares, though. Then you give Saul Alvarez a pass, too, but you give Jarrell Miller hell, and nobody cares. I mean, how hypocritical are we? I mean, can you imagine if it was Manny Pacquiao who they found with the IV before the Mayweather fight, or Gennady Golovkin got popped before fighting Alvarez? I mean, they would have been roasted, just like Jarrell Miller was. So, fast forward to now. Okay. For this fight coming up Saturday, July 20th, there is zero, and I mean zero, VADA testing. This is a premier boxing event. You don't use premier and VADA in the same sentence. And when you do, look at the results of those fights. Look at how the fights play out. A friend of mine asked me a riddle, and I'm going to share that riddle with you. But before I do, I want you to listen to Thurman's response to the VADA testing question. And you tell me what you think. Check it out.
And lastly, some people seem to be unhappy that there's no VADA testing for this fight. Can you share your thoughts on that?
I mean, I've always been a clean fighter. I've been tested throughout my boxing career at all times. Well, not at all times, but whenever they so deem it fit, I'm tested. And there was testing. It might not be as thorough as other fights. I mean, as far as constantly popping up in camp. But at the end of the day, there has been testing. And it was done through the promoters. You know, it's not my job to create testing. I fight clean at all times ever since I was an amateur, a U.S. Striving to be an Olympian. I'm prideful that even my boxing style is pretty clean. You don't see Keith Thurman being warned for low blows constantly. You don't see me being warned for the way headbutts or anything like that. I always have been a clean fighter, always will be a clean fighter. And it's one of the least of my concerns. Manny Pacquiao, we've watched him. He doesn't look 10 years younger. He doesn't look like his strength and conditioning is beyond a 40-year-old who is naturally an athlete, somebody who's been active for the past year. You know, he's been very active and he stayed in shape. So he doesn't look anything out of the norm. And whatever the promoters request, we do. There will be testing, just like every fight that's a world championship fight, before and after the fight, as the people that came and tested us a few weeks ago. So, you know, I mean, that to me, that's petty stuff. And yeah, I mean, I always say take steroids if you want, because you might actually need it. You know, I don't really care. You know, There's a lot of people out here that fight in the streets. You know, there's heavyweights popping positive, but we all know heavyweights are fat and lazy. You know, not welterweights. Heavyweights are fat and lazy. You know, so it just is what it is, man. It's never been a major concern throughout my career. I test clean at every time, so it's whatever, man.
All right, guys. So what do you think? What do you think about how Keith Thurman Jr. in the second half of the year 2019, we're almost in 2020. What do you think about how he answered the question about VADA testing? This is a world-class fight. This is 2019. We know the drug game in football and basketball, baseball, which comes down hard on people. The NBA is a joke. The NFL, to an extent, is a joke. Boxing is just a cartoon. But what do you think? And then if you listen more to Thurman on that call and other interviews or what have you, he said he's brought in count them, two strength and conditioning coaches. For what? You know, why do you need two? I think one of them is a football player or something, like an ex-NFL guy. Gotta look it up. This is what I hear, though. Listen, guys, you didn't hear about these strength and conditioning coaches in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and maybe even the first half of the decade beginning 2000. You know, well, or maybe you heard of them by then. And if you did, those were the fighters who got popped. Fernando Vargas got popped. And right after the fight, where he got popped, his strength and conditioning guy, John Philbin, quit and blamed the nutritionist, nutritionist Vargas also hired, Mazan Ali. So there's the finger pointing. You got Angel Heredia. You know him as Memo Heredia. And Memo worked with Juan Manuel Marquez and others. You remember how Marquez's physique changed and how he knocked Manny Pacquiao out, right? You remember that? Remember how his physique just is like, whoa, man, how'd you get like that? So when I hear Thurman Jr. say he has not one, but two strength and conditioning coaches, I get suspicious. Why? Because boxing history says a strength and conditioning coach is a code word for supplier. And on top of that, I'll ask again, what can two coaches do that one can't? Once again, since my buddy talked me into this, let me say, hey, I don't have any evidence. This is all speculation. This is all alleged stuff. This is just food for thought. Actually, I'm not alleging much of anything. It's just, think about it. Okay, so let me get into my friend's riddle. This is another friend. Not the guy that told me to be careful what I say and how I say it. This is a different guy. This is the guy I said had a riddle. Now, I can't tell you this guy's name because he's deeply involved in the sport of boxing at the world-class level. So I don't want to mess, like, he's in the game. So I don't want to put him out there at all. But he texted me and he said he had a riddle for me. And the riddle asked two questions. So he asked, Who takes off a year multiple times after their best victories in their primes? Okay, let me repeat that first part of the riddle. Who takes a year off multiple times after their best victories in their primes? And here's the second part of the riddle. Who has never taken VADA, never asked their opponents to take it, and doesn't seem to care? And his response to this riddle was Dirty Keith Thurman. That's who. Listen, when I say no VADA testing, when they said no VADA testing, everyone started looking Manny's direction. Everyone started blaming Manny. But here's the thing. Keith Thurman Jr. is the champion. So he's the one who's supposed to ask for VADA testing. But once again, he won't. Why not, you should ask. Why not? He never has. If you go back to the Danny Garcia fight, Danny had to win a fight in Philadelphia. I was at that fight. And Thurman was there as a guest broadcast and what have you. And then you knew what was coming up next, that WWE get in the ring and get in each other's face type thing. So they got in each other's face. And but look how fat Thurman was when they went face to face in Philadelphia. Then he loses weight at a lightning pace and is all cut up as can be on fight night. But I'm not saying anything. So when VADA was brought up recently, what did Keith say? I'm not talking about the call you just listened to or the piece of the excerpt. You go on these YouTube videos, and what did Keith say? He said, go ahead and take steroids, Manny. I don't care. Shoot up all on that stuff. What Keith was doing there is he did that as part of an aversion attempt, or diversion, if you will. In other words, it's often the accuser that's the guilty party. So he put a spin on it and said, well, I know people have looked at Manny in the past, but since neither one of us are using VADA, they're going to kind of throw the question at both of us. So let me spin it and throw it at Manny like, no, man, go ahead and take it. People have said you've done it. Look, come on, man. And then Thurman added, once he beats Pacquiao, he's taking the rest of the year off. Here we go again. So if there's another best win of his career on Saturday night, once again, it's another best win of his career in his prime, right? He's going to take the rest of 2019 off, which means we might not see him again for another year. That's a red flag, folks. You have to keep an eye on these guys who only fight once or twice a year. Red flag. In their primes, red flag. I don't care who they are. I'm taking Keith Thurman Jr. in this fight by decision. He should win. He's in his prime. He's fighting an old man. And he can bang as well as box. He's got speed and power, which all of these factors seem to be a match for anything Manny can bring. Thurman's got speed and power. He's in his prime. He's fighting an old man. He can bang. He can box. Name an opponent who could do both. Name the opponent Manny fought that has the combination of speed and power, like Thurman. Matisse, power, not speed. Broner, speed, not power. Mayweather Jr., speed, not power. Timothy Bradley Jr., Chris Algieri, Jesse Vargas, all have speed, not power. Antonio Margarito, Miguel Cotto, Brandon Rios, these guys had power, not speed. Shane Mosley was completely shot. Maybe Keith Thurman lands something on the senator and stops him in his tracks. But when I look at the style matchup, I see something close, and I see a distance fight. I mean, you get, but you don't you get the odd feeling though? Even though it's a distance fight on paper, you feel like some weird stuff will happen during the fight to either change the flow of the fight or maybe even end it. Manny looked okay against Adrian Broner, but the book is out on Broner. He doesn't punch enough. He's stationary. Keith Thurman Jr. is a mover. He moves. So this won't be the same fight as Adrian Broner. Manny looked okay. I mean, but not great against Broner. Prior to that, he had a dead man in front of him with Lucas Matisse. So we didn't learn a lot about that, anything from that. And to his credit, Manny got a knockout, but it did go. Although it went, was it 7 or 8 rounds? I think it was 7th, 8th. Can't remember. I know it was like past the midway point. This fight can go a few different ways. I can see Manny hurting Keith. And if he does, Manny is a finisher. And he will go in to do so. But can you imagine what could happen next? I can. This is where Keith Thurman Jr., being a good counterpuncher, can do his Juan Manuel Marquez impersonation to cut Manny's lights out. So if Manny gets Keith hurt, he's going to go in. But we've seen what can happen if he's not careful. On the flip side, can you imagine Manny hurting Keith with a counter punch? I can. When Thurman gets off, a lot of times his punches are wide, and so he leaves himself open. And then there's Manny's counter opportunity. So this fight can go a few ways, and if both guys are on, it could be fought at a high level, like speed chess, if you will. Thurman Jr. could hurt Manny. Manny could hurt Thurman Jr. as well. I've said this in videos going back maybe 3 years now. There's something about Keith Thurman Jr.'s chin that hasn't been fully exposed. If Manny can give that right angle at the right time, I wouldn't be shocked if he dropped Keith. Everyone talks about Keith's body, but it's the chin. Trust me. I think it's very likely Thurman Jr. can hurt Manny and maybe, just maybe, force some type of stoppage. It's just as likely it could go the other way also. I think Thurman will have enough of that extra boost, if you will, to win it. I hope I'm wrong. I don't usually root for a guy unless he's one of my favorites, or I absolutely hate the opponent. I don't hate Keith, but I'm rooting for Manny to win this one. He's not my favorite, but I don't think Thurman has been. Manny's not Manny's not, when I say he's not my favorite, Manny isn't my favorite or one of my real, I mean, I like it. I like him, but I don't think he's like one of my favorites. But I don't think Thurman has been on the up and up for some years now. And I really like to see Manny beat him. Nevertheless, I'll give Keith the edge in this one. Listen, I don't have evidence, but who has evidence of anything? You can say a fighter fought a guy and got an early knockout, okay, like fighter A, and then fighter B fought the same guy and got an early knockout, and you can say both fighter A and fighter B have both knocked everyone out, while each of their losses have been by knockout. So if they fought each other, most likely it'll be a knockout either way, right? But that's not evidence. That's speculation. The odds are there will be a knockout, but you know boxing. Both guys will get in there and be so cautious of getting stopped that they'll hold each other the entire fight, and the end result is Rockman Ruiz or Ruiz Rockman 2.0. The house wins and you go bankrupt. So it's the same thing here. It's speculation. I also speculate 80% of these guys out here are on something. And the best way to end the speculation, especially in world-class fights like this one on Saturday, is to use Olympic-style random VADA testing. It's shameful that it's not happening here. Now, VADA testing doesn't prove you are clean, but it's the best thing we have right now to catch people. Oh well, enjoy the fight on July 20th. We'll see you at the takeover on July 19th at MGM National Harbor the night before. We're going to witness the takeover. Last thing is, there's a I saw a video. It's a cute video, man. These two kids, two black kids. If I can remember, I'll leave it below. But they call themselves the Young Hittaz Boxing. It's YUNGHITTAZ Boxing, and then net. I guess that's short for network or whatever. And the title of the video is Manny Pacquiao versus Keith Thurman predictions, and it's 4 minutes 41 seconds. I like these dudes, man. First time I think I was watching them. I may have watched them before, but check out their little breakdown, especially when my man says if if Manny Pacquiao doesn't watch it, you're gonna get stretched out, and then they cut the camera and show him doing his Manny Pacquiao versus Marquez impersonation. But I thought that was funny. But I like that. I like to see the young guys coming up. They have more sense than some of these other internet people who call themselves the media. And there's another white kid. I can't find him. He's younger than both of these two, and he gives nice breakdowns, man. I mean, I really like this kid, and I can't find him. I haven't seen him. I'm still trying to look him up, but if you know who I'm talking about, leave a message below. But the kid is I like him. I like him. I haven't seen him, and maybe because I'm not subscribed. But if I find him, I'm gonna subscribe to his channel. Or maybe mom and dad said, "Hey, man, you haven't been doing your homework, so no more videos." I don't know, but check these two kids out here, and if I find the other kid, I'll put his below, or leave a comment or something. All right, y'all. We catch you later.